called Reaching Mythimna, full title, Among the Volunteers and Refugees on Lesbos. So just to give you a few words of background about the book, in 2015, a year when almost 1 million, mainly Syrian war refugees crossed the straits from Turkey to Greece. By November, I was upset enough about what was happening that I decided to go and pitch in as a volunteer, do what I could. I knew a little Greek because my mother was Greek, and I thought that might make me useful as a liaison between the authorities and the volunteers. As it turned out, I was wrong. My Greek was not up to the task. I follow Omiros behind the clothing tents where another bus has just arrived, and we intercept a party descending toward us. A sim, a squat bearded bus driver, and a heavy woman sprawled back in a wheelchair, her scarved head lolling. A sim and the driver are struggling to restrain the wheelchair on this grade. As we meet them, I realize the woman is unconscious. "What is wrong with her?" Omiros asks, raising his voice over the wind. "We don't know," Asim says. "She disembarked from the raft, but then on the bus." "What is disembark?" Omiros asks. "I must return," the driver says in Greek. "Others are waiting." "I'll go back, help Lindsay," Asim mumbles. "I'll stay here once we bring up the rest. They're Iraqis." His lips barely move like a ventriloquist's. They say he has hardly slept in weeks. Omiros and I take the wheelchair, one handle each. We too struggle to restrain it, and then, the slope leveling out, to push and steer it over the gravel. Finally, we shove it through the door flaps of the military field tent that serves as medical clinic. A single light bulb dangling by a cord sways over a table. A few unoccupied cots, a portable radiator searing to the touch. The Médecins Sans Frontières nurse must be off helping somebody who has collapsed or grown hypothermic.
My friend Hamza is a drag queen, and a damn good one. He's been making waves in the Canadian drag community for being one of very few South Asian Muslim queens. His looks are decadent, glittery, a Bollywood-esque explosion of golds, reds, and greens. People love him. Media outlets love him. But lately he's been frustrated with how much people love his trauma. When I put out this affirmation, Hamza was one of the first to repost it, telling me he was feeling it hard. His story makes for a good trauma tragedy headline. A Muslim boy, closeted, ostracized by his family and community for being gay and expressing himself unapologetically. He comes from a conservative Pakistani background where his art form is not particularly appreciated. He's frequently bombarded with messages from fellow Pakistani Muslims shaming him for what he does, telling him he's a false Muslim, a blasphemer, a liar. He shares the messages with me often. We're both brown Muslims who have double lives, to a degree, who sometimes hide things, who have a nagging feeling of being misfits in our cultural and religious community. When media outlets come calling, they love to ask him questions about this. Do your parents know? Will you come out to them? Would you get disowned? In their defense, these are valid questions. Most people are fascinated by the idea of someone so flamboyant and public also having so much to hide.
Soho, London, early evening, late 1970s, and the sounds of Friday night revelries rise up to our window on the 4th floor in Wardour Street, while I'm still working my way through piles of paperwork in the Virago office. I'm not alone. We do everything ourselves in this company, including the dusting and the vacuuming. And it's Carmen Khalil's turn to clean. Carmen is vigorously polishing one of our 3 telephones. I am 25, Canadian, new to Britain, and in awe of this formidable woman. But as only 2 of us in the office, I feel emboldened to ask, "Why did you start Virago?" She looks up and without missing a beat replies, "To change the world, darling, that's why." I know I'm in the right place. I'm a fervent believer that books can affect, even change lives. It was a memoir about bookselling that partly drew me to Britain to begin with.
I think it's important that when we are publishing BIPOC stories that it's all different kinds of stories, because I think there is often an expectation with racialized authors to write certain kinds of work, and it often falls into the trap of like, we want to read stories of suffering for marginalized people, and it becomes a very exploitative power dynamic. So I think it's really important that in publishing more BIPOC voices, that it's in every genre.
Sure. The other thing I think about publishing, as I was to speak as a publisher now, is that I think the publishing industries, and I'm sure Canada would be the same as the UK, is the default position in most industries, most creative industries even, is the status quo. And what I've witnessed is that what will change those companies and change the things we publish, of course, even if we want change, what actually makes the change are these sweeping movements. So feminism, Virago changed the face, not Virago alone, obviously, but Virago and the other feminist publishing and the feminist movement changed the face of publishing. And I'm seeing the same thing. I'm watching Black Lives Matter and I'm thinking, yes, this is exactly going to be the same. Suddenly there will be different people in publishing, because who takes the decision is obviously the key, isn't it, in publishing? But what I like to think of it is as a sort of reader's revolution, because it's the readers and the authors in the movement who say, hello, we are not there and we want to be. And then the publishers respond to that for obvious reasons, sometimes, for good moral reasons, some for market reasons, whatever the motivation. But I do think it's the movements that make the change. The industries don't change naturally or fast by themselves.